Hello, my name is Bernadette Rutina from Human Ingredient, and this series that I'm going to be presenting to you is about organisational change, how you lead change, how you engage others in change, and how you create a common purpose for the future. Our first session is on common purpose and direction, and you as a leader creating that with others. Yes, so this first session, as you can see, we're going to be looking at adaptive change, how individuals respond to change, because as you manage and lead organisations, how your staff respond, how you respond is essential for you to know, especially in times of change. And also, how do you transform human systems? So this is another way to say, how do we embed change in an organisational setting from a human perspective? Because as many of you will know, those challenges that people experience are when changes occur, whether it's structural, technology, new direction. It's the people that we're working with, and it's the people that we have to bring on board as we do this work. Adapt the basic stuff around you and show others your vision. So if you as a leader are welcoming the things that you cannot change, and also embracing and moving with others to create what you can change, it would be a good foundation for you to work from. You may be an owner in your business, you may be in a larger organisation where you're in a middle management role, a team leader role, and some of the things that occur in your organisational setting may be ones that you don't have a complete say in. But if you are welcoming things that are a given, and they may be legislative changes, they may be direction changes for the owner of the business, then these are the things that you can adapt to, take on board and start to explore, how can I do this? How can I create this with others? So adaptive change is really around managing risk, but also about understanding that it's not, when you are really changing an organisation, like many of you would have been through last year, where there were risks, there were big changes needed. You might have needed to change direction, get new products, put things online rather than do face-to-face work. This is a bigger change. So you can see from Heifetz's quote here, the deeper the change and the greater the amount of new learning required, the more resistance there is likely to be. And it's, Heifetz talks about danger in terms of really looking at how you lead those changes and how you manage the risks. People in leadership positions are frequently in spots where they go, let's just try and get around this, and let's not do the full change that we need. We'll do small things, or we'll treat the new change as we would in the same way a technical change. But this is why over many years there's been issues around success for organisational change, because we have to be able to diagnose what's the extent of the change, how are people involved, what do we need to do, and the bigger the change, the more we need to practice adaptive leadership, and the more we need to talk about with our teams, with our clients. This is what we're doing. So we're building relationship, and we're also building the change. When there are really significant transitions in an organisation, it can require such different ways of operating that it needs a totally different way of looking at things. And when we look at adaptive change, that is a new way of looking at things. People need to step outside known patterns of behaviour. And, we talk about putting ourselves in jeopardy as leaders. It might feel like it's putting ourselves in jeopardy, but it really means we're working with what's happening in the system. So as we test out new things, we're creating emergent systems. So new things emerge, and we have to be adaptive, flexible, responsive to what is happening. And sometimes that new way of working goes against everything we've ever done before. It goes against everything that human beings expect, because strangely enough, we live in a world where we think things are going to be predictable, even though we know that life is not predictable. So this requires surrender of personal control, toleration of uncertainty, and the development of a new culture at a collective level in the whole organisation, and a change in the self. So that means leaders need to be looking at themselves, and they need to be engaging with others and assisting others to make those changes as well. Organisational change takes effort, as you all know. And the value of the organisational change effort is only realised after it's implemented. Many of you would have had this experience yourselves and also read about it, that about half of organisational change efforts fall over. And then the cost is horrendous to an organisation. And studies over the years have shown that when workers are not engaged, it meant that people actually couldn't succeed. When an organisation might be only downsizing what is considered a small amount of workers, there's really a big impact on everybody. So 10% of engaged workers, they're the ones who are really going to be, working with you as leaders and working to make the changes. I'm going to take you through this change model, and some of you might recognise it. It's built on other cycles or processes of people going through change. When we first hear about a change in our lives, it might be in our role, so it might be a personal change in our job, it might be a larger system change in our organisation, it might mean a whole new way of even implementing a new system. We get shocked. We're surprised by what's happened, and quite often, if we've been in an organisation for a while, we might go, this isn't going to happen. They've tried these things before and they didn't work. Now, if you're in a leadership role and you are required to lead others at this time, you will also experience some of these things yourself, but you may be able to deal with it differently because you can see your role. You can see that you have to lead the change. And even though there are aspects of it you may struggle with, that actual leading of the change will make a difference. So you can see here on the slide, denial is really about people not being able to accept that something new is happening. And then people may feel angry about this once they get past their denial. I know that this model is put together in a linear way, but human beings don't work in a linear way, as you know. We might move between denial, anger, and then pop back to denial again. We might move to anger and then pop into withdrawal, where we feel like we don't really want to be engaged. And withdrawal can be a small withdrawal for a short period of time, or it could be withdrawal that lasts for a long time. I've worked in organisational settings where some people have just gone on leave. So as soon as there's been a big change that they see as affecting them, they've taken leave, or they've gone on sick leave as well as recreation leave. And this causes, of course, difficulties in the quote that we saw before about people being disengaged. This is a significant impediment to successful change. So accepting that a person is at that stage and assisting them and supporting them is a crucial role of leaders when you are working in an organisation where there are changes occurring. The next one here we have is passive acceptance, and this is evidenced frequently by people they're coming to work, or in some cases now coming to work means we're at our desk at home and we're online, but we're turning up, but we're not quite engaged. We're there, but we're only just out of withdrawal. When people move past passive acceptance, you'll see indicators of things like questions about the work that are curiosity, looking for what is next, exploring what the possibilities are in the work. So that's a great sign. As soon as you see people moving to that, you go, yes, let's take this opportunity and move forwards. Don't be surprised if sometimes when people get to realise what is going on in terms of the change, they may pop back again to passive acceptance or withdrawal. Because the world of, I suppose, accepting change doesn't happen immediately. It doesn't happen for some in a short space of time. And a lot of the research would indicate that if people have some challenges in their own personal lives, they may not be current, they may have been in the recent past or even the distant past, where this organisational change reminds them of loss of control, maybe loss of status in their work, maybe lack of recognition for their current skill and realising they have to learn a new skill and they feel like that's going to be too difficult. So all of these things will be experienced by people to a greater or lesser extent. When people get past and they're settled in exploring, they will frequently move to challenge. And this isn't a negative thing. Some leaders see their staff challenging them as a difficult thing. But when a person is challenging in a way that shows interest and shows a real questioning of how we might do things better, how we can ensure that these new ways of working are being put into place. And if I'm the staff member, I might be challenging, saying, well, I would love to do this. And then it's the leader's role to be working with me and saying, how might that happen? What skills do I need? Are there new skills? Is it a new role? So as a leader, especially in a change that is a big change, we really need to be saying to people, ask the questions. Let's work with that. Now, this particular model is a very, very handy one to keep in your thinking, because if you try to move people too quickly through these processes and they're experiencing a disconnect from you as a leader, or you as a head of your business, an owner in your business, if there's a disconnect between what you're doing and where they're at, then they won't budge. So quite often they may go backwards. When I ask groups, work in face-to-face settings over many years with leaders, and I get leaders together in small groups and I say, let's have a look at each of these stages and you come up with how you think a good leader would work with this. And frequently what happens is leaders who are very good in their roles haven't actually thought through what is the extent of the shock for somebody, because they're basing it on their own response, or they're basing it on what they think their own understanding is of that person. And unless we can actually work with the individual and find out where they're at, we can't tailor our responses as leaders to bring those people on board to create the new direction. So we have to give them a good level of purpose and meaning. And when people are in shock, strangely enough, they don't hear particularly well. They don't respond so well to what's going on. And shock can be a short thing, or it can take a few days. You might have think of shock in your own lives and think, well, what did I do? And many people go into an automatic robotic state when they're severely shocked, but they frequently don't remember later what that was about. So your job as a leader, when you think about communicating change, is to think, how will each of my staff And if you've got a big organisation, you have to talk to managers and team leaders. How will they see their staff responding and anticipating it and putting some regular meetings in place to talk to people and not expecting people will just immediately move forward, but that you work with them at their pace. All right, we'll keep going because we're going to build on this. So creating meaningfulness allows people to facilitate with, change for themselves, engagement with the change. The question is why does it matter? Why do we engage people? It costs a lot of money when we rush through change and half of the workforce is disengaged. So therefore, it has a business imperative for you, but it also is really, really crucial for you to have people going yes and putting the time and effort earlier, like you might for a plan of any new product, where you put time and effort into the beginning of it and then launch the new product. Change is exactly the same, putting time and effort into the planning, into the engagement before things start rolling out. And one thing to remember with change is just because somebody has said, yes, I think I'm going to be pretty good with this change, when the change occurs, our experience of the change is very different to our imagination of it. So any one of you who've ever said yes at an altar and your imagination of what that world would be like would know that probably a few years down the track, your imagination and your experience are slightly different things. So the reality of human beings is we don't know things until we're in them. So that's a really, really important message for anybody when you are leading others. Now we're referring here to growth because it could be organisational growth, but in a change, you are also looking for the growth of your employees. You are looking for the growth in your products or your services. And so if you're only as a business leader looking at growth in products and services and not thinking through what does it mean for the team and how will they grow, and growth may not be it's a bigger group. Growth may be individuals are actually learning, individuals are growing, individuals are changing. And so putting meaningfulness and growth together in change really is what underpins successful change in organisations. Thriving employees are highly energised and they know how to avoid burnout. So burnout can occur when there's large changes, but if organisations put both their key performance indicators and assist their staff to be aligned to those and matching it with personal aspirations for individuals, then there's a win-win. So as a leader of an organisation where there's significant change happening, you are going to be an adaptive leader. An adaptive leader is looking at full participation, and it helps to create something out of the unknown. When people come together, there's synergy. When you are addressing complex problems, you might get individuals to work on them and then get groups to work on them. This will assist engagement. This will create meaningful exchange, and this will also support the individual's growth. As leaders, we are frequently busy in our both leading and operations. One of our major problems as leaders is that we don't step back. And so having a look at the key elements of adaptive leadership, we need to stand back and get on the balcony, think and work politically, orchestrate what's happening and do this with others. Manage your own personal ego. So manage your hungers is about also being aware of yourself and then anchoring yourself. And we'll go into this in a bit more detail. When you are working with other people, the key way that you can think politically and also orchestrate the process is to ensure that you are identifying what is the challenge and start to frame and communicate the issues. So I'm going to go back to those key points on adaptive leadership and take you through those, and then we'll move more into responding to those. Getting on the balcony is really about standing back and looking at what are the patterns of what's happening. So if you've got a change coming up, you need to stand back, anticipate some of what's could be happening, but also be ready for this emerging and changing and you being in and out of it. If you are too much in the work, you won't be able to step back and look at what's happening. When you are thinking politically, this is in terms of internal politics in your organisation. And every organisation has them, even very small organisations. So you might only have, under 15 staff. There will be politics in that system. And that basically means that you have to understand the dynamics between people, between teams, between you and others, and be able to think, well, what am I doing to assist this? So if I'm thinking politically, I have to really be able to develop a strategy and support people, as we spoke about before with the change model. When you are orchestrating the process, you are going to do your best to create some processes that people feel safe and engaged with, but also start being productive. So there's a fine line there. And if you are going on your track because you're excited by the change and you are leaving people behind, then you'll have to keep coming back to this and recreating the process over and over again because people will dig in. Personal challenges must be addressed. So this is around managing your own hungers. People have a need for power, control, affirmation from others, be seen to be important. And what happens when we get caught in that is that our own egos get involved. And we might hear a question as a criticism. We may hear that a criticism from a team member or a colleague is one that makes us question ourselves and get defensive. So knowing yourself is a very, very essential part of leading others in change, and really anchoring yourself and knowing that you are a person that others are looking up to. So there's some work of Edgar Schein, who's a very, very interesting fellow. He's been working in organisations across the world for about 35 years now. And he speaks about every single action that a leader makes, people look to that behaviour and they go, this is what it means. Now, sometimes it means people are making up what you're doing if you are leading others in a team setting, in a change. So that means your ability to be steady in yourself, manage your own ways of expressing stress, and building relationships with people, having a good support system around you if you are leading a change, and being able to be honest and authentic with others. This is part of managing your hungers and anchoring yourself. Therefore, you will have a much better capacity to influence and support others and get the changes that you want in place. Okay, here we are. I won't take too long on these, but your role in orchestrating the process and also about stepping back and knowing what to do is really around you putting the right direction in place, shifting where you know some parts of the organisation can manage and they don't need as much support, whereas others will. So putting some pressure on, but ensuring that it's not overwhelming for people. Being able to challenge what's happening, notice where there are new things occurring, and being able to orient yourself. Managing the conflicts that could emerge and working with those and providing a safe space for people to question, to challenge, to think outside the box, to argue, to problem solve together, and create the norms that you want. Create the ways of working together. Shape these for the future. So this is part of building that common purpose. As a leader in change, your job is to transform the human system that you are leading. Now, this sounds like a big task, but every single organisation is made up of humans, and so you have roles, structures, and their interaction with their roles, their interaction with the structures, their interactions with each other, with you as a leader. So if you are really and truly wanting to assist an organisation, assist your teams to create something new and move forward, you have to see yourself as a leader who is transforming a system, not just introducing a new technology or a new product or even new staff, because every single decision you make has an impact on that human system. So when a leader is creating an emergent system is one that shifts away from hierarchy and it strives for inclusion, openness, and a sense of community. So an emergent system is one that isn't hard fixed, it's one that's open to change and inclusive of people. So this is part of being the adaptive leader. Recognising hypocrisy and patterns of self-deception, many of us as leaders might see ourselves as needing to be perfect, needing to be, I can't show any weakness here in my team, or I can't show weakness here in my business because that won't work. However, everybody sees, as human beings, we see things in others. We frequently miss things in ourselves, but we can see things in others. So you as a leader, knowing yourself really well and recognising your foibles and being able to work with those to ask for feedback. This is about recognising that you may not see things in yourself as clearly as others might see them. Personal change through value clarification and alignment of behaviour. So when you are, especially when you're working in an organisation where there are changes occurring, having a look at what your values are. How are you acting in a positive way to put the change in place, and being thoughtful and authentic with others, ensuring that your values are aligned with the sorts of things you want to create in your organisation. Many of you would have had experiences in your life where people said one thing, they espoused this value, and they went and did something else. So you can ask yourself, is that what I do? Or am I a person who does my best each day with each interaction to live my values? Now, freeing yourself from a system of external sanction, which is others appreciating you or others not appreciating you. It's very crucial for you to be looking at when you are holding true to what is right. And even if others outside of you may not agree with you, holding true to what is right and being able to influence and bring others on board in that is very, very important, especially at a time where there's change, because people will look at you and they will remember what you say as well as what you do, And if your actions and words don't go together, this creates issues, as you know. Developing a vision for the common good. This is about you being able to keep the bigger picture in mind as you get on the balcony, look at things from a distance, hop back in, you can see, well, how can we do this? And the vision might be a written vision, but how do you make the vision be lived every day? How do you make the vision that is good for everyone? So that means you have to step into the shoes of others to do this work. Take action on the edge of chaos. So you know that it takes tremendous courage to keep going, especially if you're a person who likes structure and control, but you're not in a world where things are able to be controlled. So you may have had a lot of experience of that over the last year or so, and knowing that you can live with chaos, you can live with the changes, and being able to take action to test things out without sometimes knowing exactly where they'll go. Really maintaining respect and support for others who are involved in the change, and these could be partner organisations, they could be your clients, they could be people in the community that you are working with. So it's both internal to your organisation and external, where you are being respectful, bringing others on board with you with that common vision. Okay, I'm just going to go back to there. Inspiring people to be the best. When we inspire others and when we are very much true to what is important to what we are trying to achieve and true to our own values, we can inspire people by our actions. But we can also inspire people with our stories of a picture of what's possible. So think about, what's the story that you might create about this new way of working or this new product that you're doing? What's the story you can create that will inspire others? If you don't see yourself as a storyteller, talk to someone who is and tell them your story, and they will help you create that. Make sure, this sounds really odd here, model counterintuitive and paradoxical behaviour. This means that you encourage out-of-the-box thinking in yourself and others. Even if you're in an organisation or a business where things are, pretty much planned, how can you bring out-of-the-box thinking into that? Because when you're in a world where change is, happening every day, then you have to be able to sit on the edge of the chaos, come up with out-of-the-box thinking. Change yourself and the systems. So we can't keep doing the same things when we're making those changes. So you're changing systems, you might be changing products, but you have to change yourself along the way and encourage that growth mindset in others. Listen carefully to reservations expressed by other people, because when you do this, you can be fully informed about what they're saying. Don't just listen, ask questions. Explore, what does it mean? If you hear something and you think, they're just saying no to what we're doing, explore it, see where it will go, assist them to see where it will lead. That's what real listening is about. How can leaders do what is needed? Take the risk of not having all the answers while still taking up your role as an organisational leader. Well, reframing your job from problem solving to one where you are supporting growth in others, where you are supporting problem solvers coming up with action in your workplace, giving the work to the people, asking what's important, asking tough questions and not giving the answers. Really understanding how people learn, not by telling them, but by understanding the perceptions, beliefs and values that drive their actions. So think about how you can encourage people to be more agile in their thinking. I had a great manager many years ago when I was not long in the workforce out of my university degree. And one of the things that really struck a chord with me and has stayed with me over many years is that he would always give me something that was a bit harder to do than what I thought I could do. And he supported me to do it, but sometimes he would just go and cold call those 10 people and see what they're going to say. And as a young person who was fairly quiet, as I started in the workforce, this was a daunting task, but it was part of my job, so I went and did that. I talked with him about how to do it, but I had to ultimately do it myself. So this is about giving people something extra, the growth, and assisting them with agile ways of thinking, to think outside the box. Accepting in times of change that heartache is inevitable and that courage is essential. This is, as you know, you probably have all been through some form of this type of challenge over the last year or two. Now, Einstein says we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. And if you have that in your mind every time you are working with others and solving problems with them in an organisational change setting, then ask yourself, are we doing the same thing? Have we started with where we are, or have we put that aside, gone to the future, gone to the direction that we imagine is possible, and worked out what would it take us to get there? All right, it's been great working with you on this session, and I look forward to our next one.